What if living for 1,000 years taught you that the secret to happiness isn't time, but something far more elusive that most humans never discover in their brief 70 years? Frieren stands at Himmel's grave, flowers in hand, and for the first time in decades, something clicks. Not about magic, not about adventure, but about a psychology principle that a legendary scholar discovered in the darkest places imaginable. The principle that's now quietly revolutionizing how we understand the purpose of existence itself. This isn't just another story about an immortal elf learning to appreciate mortals. This is about why some beings find profound meaning in fleeting moments while others live centuries in emptiness. And what Frieren discovers about human nature might be the most important lesson any immortal could learn. You see, most immortals make the same mistake. They think meaning comes from accumulation, more experiences, more knowledge, more time. Frieren thought this too, until she met a hero who showed her something different. The hero who understood time better than an immortal. Picture this: you have all the time in the world. Literally, magic comes naturally, adventures are routine, and you've seen empires rise and fall like seasonal flowers. Yet somehow, a human who lives barely a century understands something about existence that you have missed in your millennium of life. That was Himmel's gift to Frieren, though she wouldn't understand it for decades after his death. He didn't just show her friendship or love, he showed her the three principles that transform any life, no matter how long or short, into something meaningful. When a renowned scholar first encountered these same principles through ancient texts and survivor accounts, he was studying the deepest aspects of human psychology. He expected academic theory. Instead, he found a framework that explained why some people thrive despite suffering while others despair despite abundance. The same framework that explains why Himmel could find such profound joy in his brief human life while Frieren, with all her centuries, felt emotionally numb. But here's where the story gets interesting. What Frieren learns about meaning isn't mystical or magical. It's psychology in its most practical form, tested not in laboratories but in the crucible of real experience. The three discoveries that change everything now. Before you think this is just another tale about learning to love humans, let me stop you there. What Frieren discovers through her journey goes deeper than sentiment. It's about fundamental principles of consciousness that apply whether you live 70 years or 7,000. The first revelation hits her during a quiet moment with Fern. Life can always have meaning, regardless of circumstances. Not life is always pleasant or everything works out in the end. Just that meaning is always possible, even in loss, especially in grief. This isn't philosophical comfort food, it's observable reality. For Frieren, this meant reframing everything. Those centuries of what felt like empty wandering, they weren't wasted time. They were preparation, foundation, the slow accumulation of wisdom that would eventually allow her to guide others. Even her emotional distance and failure was a different way of experiencing meaning that complemented human intensity. But the second principle is where Frieren's psychology gets fascinating. She realizes that neither she nor humans are primarily driven by pleasure-seeking or power accumulation. They're driven by meaning-seeking. This explains why Himmel's party found such satisfaction in their quest, why Fern finds purpose in her magic studies, and why Frieren herself feels most alive when she's helping others discover their own paths. And the third principle, this one revolutionizes how Frieren sees her immortality. She's free. Not free from consequences, not free from loss, but free in the one space that matters most, her response to existence itself. Her centuries aren't a burden to endure, but a canvas to paint with intentional choices. The modern crisis that even immortals face, here's something that should concern any thinking being. We're experiencing an unprecedented crisis of meaning, and it affects mortals and immortals alike. Ancient scholars identified something profound about our current era that applies to Frieren's world too. Throughout history, beings had two things that made meaning less elusive: instincts and traditions. Instincts guided survival behaviors. Traditions provided tested frameworks for living well. Modern society and Frieren's post-adventure existence has lost both. For humans, this manifests as depression, anxiety, addiction to distractions, and that hollow feeling that something essential is missing despite material abundance. For an immortal like Frieren, it showed up as emotional numbness, treating relationships as temporary inconveniences, and centuries passing like barely noticed seasons. The rise of individual freedom paradoxically creates existential anxiety. When every choice is possible, choosing becomes overwhelming. Frieren experienced this acutely with infinite time and nearly unlimited magical ability. What should she do? The options were paralyzingly endless. This liquid nature of modern existence, as ancient philosophers described it, makes meaning both more important and more difficult to find. Everything feels temporary, changeable, uncertain. Even for an immortal, the ground seems to shift constantly. The integration revolution. But here's where FRIERE'N'S story becomes revolutionary rather than just touching. She doesn't just learn to appreciate human emotions, she develops what ancient wisdom calls an integrative approach to existence. Traditional immortals might stick to one way of being: detached observation, accumulation of knowledge, or perhaps hedonistic pleasure-seeking. FRIERE'N discovers something more sophisticated. She integrates different approaches to meaning-making, drawing from various sources as situations require. Sometimes she provides stability and wisdom like a mountain. Sometimes she engages with immediate emotional experiences like her human companions. Sometimes she uses her unique perspective to help others see beyond their temporal limitations. This isn't inconsistency, it's integration. Great teachers have always advocated for the same approach, moving beyond rigid adherence to single philosophical models. Even the most renowned scholars believed their methods weren't complete solutions, but should collaborate with other approaches. The most effective practitioners draw from multiple sources, adapting their methods to what each person needs. For FRIERE'N, this means she can honor both her immortal nature and her connections with mortals. She doesn't have to choose between emotional distance and overwhelming attachment. She can experience both as appropriate, using her centuries of perspective to hold space for the full spectrum of meaningful existence. The three types of value that transform existence. What FRIERE'N ultimately discovers is that meaning comes through three distinct but interconnected pathways, regardless of how long you live. Creative values involve what you give to existence through actions and creations. For FRIERE'N, this includes her magical knowledge, her guidance of younger mages, and her gradual documentation of the world's changes. These aren't grand gestures, but consistent contributions that ripple forward through time. Experiential values come from what you receive from existence: love, beauty, connection, wonder. FRIERE'N learns to notice these again through Fern's eyes, rediscovering the magic in ordinary moments she'd stopped seeing centuries ago. Even small experiences can carry profound meaning when approached with presence rather than immortal indifference. Attitudinal values emerge from the stance you take toward unchangeable aspects of existence. For FRIERE'N, this means accepting her immortality neither as curse nor blessing, but as the context within which she creates meaning. Her attitude toward loss, time, and difference becomes itself a source of meaning. The practical magic of meaning. The most remarkable thing about FRIERE'N's transformation isn't magical at all, it's psychological. By understanding these principles, she moves from existing to living, from observing to participating, from accumulating time to creating significance. This mirrors what's happening in contemporary understanding, where advanced systems are increasingly being used to help beings find meaning and purpose. The principles work across species, across lifespans, across circumstances, because they tap into something fundamental about conscious existence itself. Modern teachings through various institutes and schools demonstrate this practically. Whether someone is struggling with modern existential emptiness, or like FRIERE'N with the unique challenges of immortal existence, the same principles apply. Life can have meaning. Beings seek meaning above all else, and you're free to choose your response to whatever existence offers. The eternal search. FRIERE'N's story ultimately suggests that the search for meaning isn't a problem to solve, but a fundamental aspect of conscious existence to embrace. Whether you have 70 years or 7,000, whether you're human or elf, mortal or immortal, the question isn't whether life has meaning, but whether you'll engage with the ongoing process of creating it. This is why her journey resonates so powerfully. She represents all of us regardless of our lifespan, learning that meaning isn't found but made, not discovered but created through our choices, connections, and the attitudes we bring to existence itself. The search for meaning isn't the destination, it's the journey that makes any life, however long or short, worth living.